Hey, I'm Org, and in this video I'm going to talk about the changes coming up in patch 0.5.3 in World of Warships. In the background you will be seeing gameplays from the test server of me playing in team battles. I'm not really going to be talking about the gameplay, it's just something for you to watch while I talk. Anyway, there are three big changes coming up in this patch: team battles, new and updated captain skills, and changes to aircraft carrier loadouts. Starting with captain skills, the most talked about change to captain skills might not happen, but at the moment they're talking about changing advanced and basic firing training. Essentially this skill will still apply in the same way to anti-aircraft and secondary guns, but will only affect main battery guns of 137mm and below. Frankly, I think this change was needed. Light cruisers are very powerful just in their ability to return effective fire at very long ranges while avoiding enemy fire. And allowing high school captains to stay even further back kind of just made them a bit too powerful. So I think this change will actually help the game. I hope it gets implemented. And there's actually only a few ships that will be affected by this change. Let's just list them: the Mogami Light Cruiser, the Cleveland, Nuremberg, Königsberg, Omaha, Phoenix, Kuma, Tenru, Karlsruhe, St. Louis, Chester and Chikuma. Yeah, those are the only ships in the main tech lines. The low tier German cruisers have guns smaller than that, so they won't be affected by it. And also the Chester can have small caliber guns if you want to actually, it would actually give a reason to use the 127s on the Chester, since they would effectively have a 20% longer range than the larger guns. So, I know, something to think about. Obviously previously the only ship that really needs advanced firing training is the Albany, but that ship is getting its firing range increased to compensate, so it's actually going to have about the same range as it does, it's going to have the same range stock as it does currently with advanced firing training. And also, since I'm sure lots of people will ask, Wargaming has said that since this is a fairly significant change, we will all get the opportunity to change our existing captain skills for free. People keep bringing this up, so I thought it would be best to mention it. A few of the current captain skills have been improved, although none struck me as being particularly important. Last Chance and Expert Loader are both dramatically improved in effect, but are still exactly as situational, which is to say they're not going to be useful very often. Vigilance is improved, as is Jack of all Trades, but I've never actually used either of those skills in the game. One of them is too hard for me to get to, and the other one I just don't see much point in. So I can't actually comment on the strength of the improvement. Torpedo armament expertise has also been improved, giving further decreases in torpedo reload time, which is useful but not a huge change. And yeah, actually one big change is Last Stand has been moved from a 4 rank skill to a 2 rank skill, which actually makes it much easier to get and kind of therefore much better. You can get something better or something else alongside it. It actually means there's a choice at tier 2 for destroyer and light cruiser captains. A Last Stand is of course a very useful skill which enables you to still move and maneuver with a destroyed engine or a rudder. There are also some new high rank captain skills added. 3 of them at rank 4. We have Survivability Expert, which adds 400 hit points per ship tier to a ship. For instance, a tier 5 ship will get a 2000 hit point increase after taking this skill. This can be very useful for destroyer captains, but fairly insignificant for battleship drivers. We also get, at the same rank, manual AA control. I'm not sure if this is actually currently working properly on the test server. At the moment it gives a massive boost to the AA efficiency against the aircraft you have targeted manually. There's kind of some talk that it's not supposed to work. It's supposed to give you a massive increase to aircraft you have targeted manually, but it won't fire at aircraft you haven't targeted manually. That's not the case at the moment, and there's some confusion over whether that's how it's supposed to be or not. This actually does give a pretty impressive boost to AA performance, at least if a game I played in the Admiral Hipper is to be believed. Torpedo Acceleration is a new skill at rank 4, and it's very interesting, particularly for Japanese destroyer captains. The skill increases your torpedo speed by 5 knots, but decreases its range by 20%. So in other words, you're using your fuel in your torpedo quicker, so it will go faster, but just won't go as far. I definitely intend to use this on Japanese destroyers from the Mutsuki up. Just for example, with this skill, the Mutsuki's torpedoes will be almost as fast as Minakaze's, but with a kilometre extra range and will do more damage. And at least how I play the ship, I almost never fly my torpedoes beyond 8 kilometres range, so I won't actually miss having that extra range. Once you get up to 15 or 20 kilometres, you really don't need that extra range, and I'd rather have the extra speed. The final new skill is manual secondary aiming. When you have this skill, your secondaries do not fire automatically. You have to manually select the target before they fire. However, you get a very large increase in secondary accuracy, 60% improvement at tier or above tier 8, which is really huge, and I'm sure the Japanese battleship drivers in particular will like that one. And now I'm going to talk about the changes for aircraft carriers. And I'll start by saying that I didn't really get a chance to decently test these changes, as the test server simply wasn't up long enough in the current iteration. But overall, I was actually underwhelmed by them. On the surface, it actually looked very promising. Basically, a lot of new aircraft were being added, with the aircraft at the bottom and the top tiers removed. What this means is that the stock fighter on the Langley will be the F4B, which is currently the top fighter on the Bogue. While at the other end of the line, the top fighter on the Midway will be the F8F, which is not a jet, and is currently the top fighter on the Essex and the stock fighter on the Midway. So this actually seems, on first glance, to be a good way to buff low tier carriers, nerf high tier carriers, while decreasing the gap between different tiers, making it more competitive to play against, making lower tier carriers more competitive against high tier opponents. But the aircraft have all had their stats changed, so the difference is not as big as it seems. For example, the new F8F has only 90 lower survivability, and that is 90 out of 2100 kind of thing, and does exactly the same damage as the current F2H, but it flies 1 knot faster than the current jet fighter. So yeah, it's basically the same aircraft, well, same aircraft, a bit faster, but less durable. Down at the stock Langley, it's a similar story. This time the F4B is considerably faster, 23 knots faster, but it only gets 40 more survivability and actually does 2 less damage per second. So, as I said, the change is kind of overwhelming. Overall, they seem to give a very slight nerf to the Midway, while giving a buff to all the other carriers in game, particularly the low tier ones. And I kind of predict these changes will lead to a bit of a golden age for Hoshos and Zuihos, which are already kind of powerful, and they're just getting faster aircraft that are a bit more durable, faster, and they're going to have a bit more of an effect on gameplay. On the other hand though, AA guns have also been rebalanced. The damage done by defensive fireability and manual targeting of aircraft have been decreased, but the damage done by high caliber AA guns has been increased, and the new manual targeting skill is quite powerful. This basically means that escorting ships to provide AA cover has become much more effective, as all these buffs are applying to your long-range anti-aircraft. As I mentioned earlier, I had a game in my Admiral Hipper where I shot down 9 enemy aircraft from a Shokaku in about 20 seconds, thanks to defensive fire and the manual targeting, and from memory none of those aircraft came within 3.5 kilometers of me. They were all heading towards an Amagi I was escorting. I believe the Amagi shot down another 10, something like that. We basically killed all the enemy bombers and a couple of fighters. Basically probably ruined that Shokaku's day. And that was basically all down to, as I said, the manual targeting skill, defensive fire, consumable, and just the increased performance of high caliber anti-aircraft guns, of which the Admiral Hipper has a few. I'm thinking that this will mostly work to improve the AA defences of high tier cruisers and battleships. I'm kind of probably act as a bit of a nerf against the tier 9 and 10 aircraft carriers in particular, just because they'll be going up against much tougher anti-aircraft guns, and they have, well, the Midway at least has had the survivability of its aircraft decreased, so hopefully they'll get shot down. Well, they should get shot down much easier now than they are currently. The final big change is team battles. Team battles are a game mode similar to ranked battles, which I'm sure you're all familiar with the exception that the team you are in carries over from match to match, and your team moves up and down the rankings depending on the skill of your opponents as well as your results. I really can't give a lot of details here, unfortunately. The tests server information about it seems to be poorly translated from Russian, otherwise I was just being completely thick, but I couldn't understand half of what's happening. It actually took me about 5 minutes to find the leave team button, which is kind of embarrassing, but I couldn't find it. Anyway, team battles, they are 7v7 matches on domination maps. There seems to be 3 leagues where you start in the bottom league and you only compete with others in your league until at some point, somehow, I'm not sure how, you get moved up to the second league and so on. Teams can consist of up to 10 members, although only 7 can fight in one battle. If there are less than 7 people in your team, then the difference can be made up of by mercenaries, who are people without a team who sit in the queue waiting for battle. And there were lots of those on the test servers, and I think most matches were mostly mercenaries fighting mercenaries. So in other words, in that case, it's actually just like ranked battles with a few people talking to each other instead of no one talking to each other. The thing I'm not happy about team battles is that they will only be available for a limited time each day, just to ensure that there's, active competition. You don't have to wait very long in the queue for this, maybe 2 or 3 hours a day that they're actually on for, just because everyone will be logging on to play them. But that's going to really suck for me, because it's almost certainly going to be about 1 or 2 in the afternoon my time, which is when I'm at work. So it's going to severely limit my ability to play in team battles, but you may see me as a mercenary occasionally on my days off. There is one more thing I'd like to mention quickly, and that is permanent camouflage. This is currently in the game on premium ships, but you're now going to be able to buy it for high tier non-premium ships. And I think they're planning to move them down to the lower tiers eventually, but at the moment it's only high tiers. Basically you pay a few thousand doubloons and you get a camouflage, giving the usual camouflage benefits that you never have to pay for ever again. It's yours forever. Well, it's probably actually yours until you sell the ship, but okay. And it also gives you a 50% bonus to experience earned on that ship. Which is actually kind of quite useful, because it's actually halfway to the bonuses you get from buying a premium ship. I think it would actually be really popular if it gave you a bonus to credit income, either instead of or as well as a bonus to experience. But as it is, that is still very useful for training up captains in particular, as well as earning free experience if you've got doubloons to spare for that. Well, I suppose if you've got doubloons to spare for camouflage, you've probably got them to spare to create free experience, but whatever. So yeah, that's probably something, so if you've got the doubloons, probably something you should look at if there's a ship that you intend to just keep forever. Chuck some free camouflage on it, make some more experience, get an awesome captain, use that captain to destroy your enemies. And well, yeah, those are kind of the important changes coming up in patch 5.3. Overall I quite like them, although I don't think the aircraft carrier changes went quite far enough, although it's a bit hard to tell because you've got the AA escorting buff on the one hand versus the kind of lackluster aircraft nerf to the Midway on the other hand. But we'll have to wait and see. I think it's not quite good enough, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm looking forward to the new captain skills, and I'm also looking forward to team battles, even if I won't really be able to play in them. But overall, I'm thinking this patch is actually going to be a pretty... I think it's actually going to give a bit of a buff to destroyers in particular, particularly the Japanese destroyers. Just a case of they can get their last stand skill easier, they get the new torpedo acceleration skill, which is going to be useful for them. Oh, I forgot, there's also a new consumable for Japanese destroyers. Actually, it's only for the Hatsuharu and the Kagaru. I completely forgot about it because it seems quite useless to me, to be honest. Instead of a smoke screen, you get the ability to increase your torpedo's reload time, but you only get to increase your torpedo's reload time to 60 seconds. And on the Hatsuharu, off the top of my head, it's about 73 seconds to start with. Less if you have the torpedo armament expertise skill. So that's actually a very slight reduction, and to my mind it's not worth getting that because you have to give up your smoke screens to get it. But that's another bonus to Japanese destroyers. And also the new survivability skill, or survivability expertise, is actually going to be really useful for the Japanese destroyers more than any other class of ships. Just because, 2,000 extra hit points on a Minakaze is actually pretty huge for that ship, and it's going to increase the survivability of the Japanese destroyers a fair bit. So yeah, I think it's a good day to be a Japanese destroyer captain when this patch comes out. Yeah, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this video, or found it useful, informative, and I'll see you all next time.